Today on the 10-12 podcast, we're making picks for every Week 9 Big 12 game with our friend Chase A. Kiddy and Brian Fremeau, the man behind the FEI rating we mention on the show here every single week. We've got the Sunflower Showdown. We've got the game we're calling the Rich Rod Ruckus. Love making up a good rivalry. And a whole lot more of great stuff for you here today on the 10-12 podcast.
Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Welcome to the 10-12, the podcast that covers all 16 teams in the Big 12 Conference. We are the flagship show of the 10-12 Network. Find every show in the network at 1012network.com. And of course, we are partners with Sports Social, Europe's biggest sports podcast network. I'm your host, Phillip Slavin. Thank you for joining us for the Week 9 Picks show. Us, because it is always myself. And of course, my illustrious co-host. I dared to call him the pro picker because that title is still bestowed upon our good friend Daniel Alexander. But that doesn't mean that Chase doesn't know what he's doing. That, of course, is Chase A. Kiddy.
Well, I mean, knowing what you're doing is relative. Knowing what you're doing might be a stretch to this process, but yeah, I'm sure we'll get into it. That was we had a rough week last week. I'm sure we'll talk more about it later. Pretty rough.
Well, but how's the college, the best bets at BetMGM? How are they going so far this season?
I believe we're still north of 60%, so that's obviously nothing to complain about. But you know how like you do this every week. There's always 1 week a year where everything's wrong, and like usually it comes before late October. And I was kind of, you're starting to feel yourself like, man, this is a good season. Things are going well. I mean, my NFL picks were wrong last week. The college picks were wrong last week. The Google Maps estimates were right. Anything I had an opinion on last weekend between.
Chase, you're freezing. Okay, well, we'll come back to Chase. If he pops out, he'll get back in. Joining Chase and I, as we have a guest picker every single week, and one of my goals this season, we read through a list of different numbers each week when we talk about each game: SP Plus, T-Shoe Index, Beta Rank, Parker, Kelly Ford. We've had Kelly Ford on. We've had Rob Bowen with Beta Rank. We had Tyler Shoemaker of T-Shoe Index last week. We'll get Parker on soon. I'm very excited today to get another person who is responsible for one of the numbers that we read here on the show each week. Brian Fremeau, who does FEI, is joining us today. Brian, welcome to the 10-12, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You got an illustrious list of cast of characters who've come through. I appreciate being part of that.
Absolutely. It's been fun. Over the years, I've like cultivated all these different places I like to go to get numbers to kind of pull all together, because it's interesting to look at what different people say and different people think. And when I say think, but different people's mathematical systems kind of spit out. And because sometimes there's a lot of uniformity and sometimes they're drastically different. So it's really neat to do. Do us a favor real quick. You are the father of FEI. What sets FEI apart from some of the other ones that we've mentioned?
Well, from my vantage point, I've been at it a while, so I've got a robust data set of 200 to 300,000 possessions over the last 17 years in college football, and I do all of my work based on what I call possession efficiency. What essentially boils down to how well do you move the ball when you have it and move it into scoring range and capitalize, and how well do you stop your opponent from doing that. And I don't focus on play level data. I don't focus on player level data, but I really just describe teams, offenses and defenses, and special teams units by how they maximize those possessions. So I don't know if there's a secret sauce to it so much as there's a lot of like, the math tells me that these things can be consistent and repeatable year over year, and that's what my FEI ratings are ultimately boiled down to, is opponent adjusted possession data.
You can find all of that at bcftoys.com. That's the site I love to go to each week as I prepare for this episode. So we will, of course, offer Brian the opportunity to talk about those numbers some more as we go. Brian, one other thing that we like to ask our guests each week. Chase is a father-to-be, twins on the way in December. We've been trying to help him out, by asking our guests, or at least those with kids, for a piece of parenting advice that you would like to offer Chase as he prepares for a very new adventure.
Well, I don't know that I can give you. I am the father of two daughters, one a college freshman and the other one a seventh grader. So it's been a while since we've had babies in the house, but good luck to you. That's number one. Be patient with your spouse and with one another, and I'm sure you'll do great. When I think about being a dad, the thing that I don't know if I am unique in this regard in terms of prioritizing dad jokes or anything else that sort of self-deprecates. But I think teaching your kids to not take themselves too seriously is always a good strategy, because one, you got to be able to laugh at yourself, and two, you can kind of get yourself as you grow through potentially awkward situations if you know to keep that in mind. So I would advise you to keep that at the forefront and be a goofball for them, and they'll be able to manage a lot of life's challenges as they grow.
I will have no problem being a goofball. So that's easily achieved on my end.
It's great.
Already set up for success there. That's excellent.
That's right. I think we're sort of just born that way. A lot of men to be able to make fools of themselves. Sometimes we don't know it, but that's served me well in my life. So here we are.
Very good. I love it. That is great advice. Brian. All right. Before we get to the last week's results, I just want to remind everyone the 10-12 Overtime is our YouTube show. Our second episode is up with our good friend Justin Leo of Volume Pigs. We are ranking top 5 running backs in the Big 12 at this point. Justin joined us before the season to discuss Big 12 running backs. This is the year of the running back. So we have a fantastic little half-hour interview with him. Video is up over on the YouTube channel. You can go check out 10-12 Podcast YouTube and check out the first 2 episodes of the 10-12 Overtime there. We had Parker for the first one. I've got a great guest lined up for next week. And as you know, we do not tease who guests are, because as soon as we do, they cancel. And that's not on them. That is just cosmic karma being like, that's what you get. Yeah, you keep it to yourself. We are not, of course, the only show on YouTube. Utah Utes Football Digest is our Utah show here in the network. It is a YouTube-only show. Go and check it out. Viva La Cats has a YouTube show. Tortillas and Takes. Of course, Tortillas and Takes being our Texas Tech show. The Hype Train Podcast, which is our BYU show. And Scott and Holman Podcast, which is our Houston show, all have videos up on YouTube. If you like to watch or listen to your podcasts on the YouTube platform, there are some shows that I like to have the video up. It's fun. It's enjoyable. So, all that said, let's get to what happened last week. I had another successful week, Chase. I went 6-3 and won the week. Chase 4-5, and our guest Tyler 3-6. Brian, I'm just gonna tell you, we've had one winning week from a guest so far. So at some point, the guests will get on a roll here. I get it. It's the Big 12 is a weird conference. It's crazy. I went, like I said, 6-3, hit on Cincinnati -5, hit on Colorado +3.5, hit on the over 55.5 in Texas Tech Baylor, hit on Kansas State -3, under 50 in Utah versus TCU, and my non-Big 12 of the over 78 in what was the Utah State New Mexico game. Yeah, that went way over and hit into the 90s. The misses were BYU -9 versus Oklahoma State, Houston +5.5 versus Kansas, and Iowa State -13.5 versus UCF. 6-3 on the week brings me to 39-35. I'm feeling good, not confident, just good. Okay, if I start getting confident, I will completely fall off the track. So I'm feeling pretty good. Chase, like I said, 4-5 last week. Hit on Oklahoma State +9.5. Hit on Colorado +3.5. That was a consensus win for the three of us. We went 1-2 in consensus games last week. The miss for all of us was Iowa State -13.5. You hit on Baylor +7 and hit on the under 50 in Utah TCU. The misses, We're Arizona State plus 5.5, Houston plus 5.5, Iowa State minus 13.5, West Virginia plus 3.5, and the Florida State plus 3 versus Duke. 4 and 5, 37 and 37 on the season, sir.
I knew Arizona State was dead the minute it came out of my mouth. Like I wasn't even in bed that night before I was like, yeah, Cincinnati was the right play. So that one I was like, whatever. But I kind of forgot that I was 4 and 5 last week. Because the column picks had a really bad week. I think I was 1 and 5 in the column, which was my first losing week of the season in the column. And I think I just carried that forward in my head of like, I missed everything last week, but not terrible. I mean, you don't want to go 4 and 5, but not terrible.
No, not bad at all. I will note that's back-to-back misses on the non-Big 12 picks, or after a very strong start to the season.
Yeah, after you go 7-0, you go 0-2. That's how it is, right?
Yeah, it balances out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sample size. You're doing good.
Yeah,
that's a man that knows stats.
And Chase, I don't know what your Big 12 bet of the week is this week. I'd like you to pick it first because I want to make sure and pick opposite of you because
it's pretty rough.
It's not going well so far. It's 1 and 7. No,
it's so bad we can't retire it. We have to keep doing it.
You have to keep it going.
Yeah.
And I just need you to pick it first so that I know what to pick the opposite of.
Some listener must be making a fortune off of the opposite. Right?
I mean, I tell people this is not a show where we would suggest you actually follow our bets. It's more a way to preview. But look, if you are so bold and have the I would call it wastable income to spend following what we do, you're welcome to do so. I would suggest instead that you put that you email us at 1012podcast@gmail.com and I will send you our Venmo, and then you can just send the money directly to us. I think that would be a better use of your funds than actually following our picks each week. So I'm excited. We got a really good week 9 slate here to get to. So fellas, you ready to start making some picks?
Let's do it.
Press on, sir.
Thank you. That's the attitude I need. I need that energy. I don't, because it's going to be fun. All right, let's kick things off at 2:30 because there's no 11 a.m. games now that OU's no longer in the conference. The Big 12 doesn't have 11 a.m. games anymore. That was just for Oklahoma. 2:30 p.m. Central Time, God's time, on Fox. TCU hosting Texas Tech in Fort Worth. An in-state rivalry, the one that doesn't really have a name. We've got Butt Bowl. We've got the Revivalry. I'm not calling it the Blue Bonnet, whatever. It sounds like an old person special at Luby's on a Tuesday afternoon. I don't know why the Texas Tech TCU doesn't have a name. If it does, I don't know how I don't know it, but you can hit us at 1012 Network on Twitter and tell me why I'm an idiot and should know the name. It's in-state stuff. In-state rivalry games are always fun. This one should be fun. We've had some classics in this matchup. As of now, TCU, a 6.5 point home favorite over the Red Raiders. Total in this one currently at pretty much 66.5 across the board. Brian, as our guest, you get first pick, sir. What would you like in this game?
Give me the Red Raiders. My numbers actually have them outright winner, edging out TCU on the road. So take these picks for what it's worth. Obviously, no one's getting the Big 12 nailed week after week. The conference is way too competitive for that. But both of these teams have underperformed relative to preseason expectations overall. But actually, Tech a little less worse relative to those expectations than TCU in my numbers. So let's put it on Texas Tech and especially getting 6.5 more points than my numbers want to give them. So we'll take it.
I like it. Texas Tech plus 6.5. Chase?
I want no part of the point spread in this game. I have no feel for it at all. And so I will be looking at the total here. Last 4 games between these two teams in Fort Worth have all gone under. Only one game in the last 5 years has generated 67 points or more. I think we can rightly expect offense in this game, but we're pushing 70 here with the total. So there's a lot of room to have a high scoring game that still comes under this number. Give me the under.
I'll run through the numbers as Brian mentioned, he has Texas Tech favored in this one by a bit. SP Plus has TCU -7, and TSU has TCU -4. However, Beta has Texas Tech by 2.5. Parker has Texas Tech by almost 4. Kelly Ford gives TCU a 65% chance to win. So it's kind of all over the map here on this one. And the totals are kind of the same problem. I got 61, 68.5, 57, 73, and 65. So this game is one of those who knows, right? I'll say this: Texas Tech's most played defensive tackle heading into this weekend against Baylor is out for the season. That's Imarian Duda Banks, knee injury he suffered in the first quarter last week. He's done for the year. Not the news you want to hear after the defense recorded 0 sacks and 0 tackles for loss against Baylor last week. Texas Tech's defense, it's like 2 steps forward, 8 steps back every time. It just never know if they're going to show up or not. That said, TCU's run defense is bad. Don't let. I have a theory that last week's results in a lot of cases in the Big 12 were all fool's gold, and I'll kind of mention that as we go. I don't think Texas Tech is as bad as Baylor made them look. I don't think Baylor's as good as they looked against Texas Tech. I'm not going to read into TCU's defense being awesome against Utah, even if they did limit a Utah rushing attack when TCU's rushing defense has been awful. TCU's rushing defense is not good. Taj Brooks is a very good running back. I think he's going to have a nice day. Brian, you and I agree here. I'm riding with the Red Raiders plus 6.5. I would not be shocked if Texas Tech goes on the road and wins this one outright.
That's kind of what freaks me out about this game, though, is that, like, I mean, I agree with you guys. Why is TCU at some points this week a full touchdown favorite? That's a silly point spread. Texas Tech a week ago was tied for first in the conference. It makes no sense to me, man. You know how I feel about point spreads that make no sense.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. This is gonna be fun. I can't wait, Chase. I can't wait. 2:30 p.m. on ESPN. The Bounce House will be a rockin' when UCF hosts number 11 BYU. That's just a classic Big 12 matchup, BYU and UCF. We could think of all of the incredible matchups that these two teams have had.
A lot of common ground there.
Yeah, absolutely. Surprisingly, this is not on our first time ever matchup. I don't remember what year UCF and BYU played previously, but apparently they have, which is okay, sure. At the moment, UCF, about a 2.5 point favorite. Total in this one sits at 55.5, pretty much across the board. Chase, you're up first, sir, and let's lay that principle down. Let's lay it down.
I feel like we're putting an awful lot of stock into a good game against Iowa State last week. I mean, taken, understood, acknowledged. There was still a month of really bad games the month before that, right? And it's not like it's not like, well, the quarterback play had been shoddy and we think we fixed that, so now UCF's better. I'm skeptical of this UCF team. I need to see more than one good game against one good team, and I feel like that's doing a lot of heavy lifting here. It's like, the line movement on this is something akin to good game against first place team last week, home field advantage, bounce house, BYU also first place, yada, 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 UCF. Like that's what it feels like to me. And that's just a little too cute for me. I was, in real life, right? I've never bet this game in real life. And it was a firm stay away for me before the line movement when we were looking at BYU -2. And now you're looking at BYU plus 1.5, and it might even work its way into being a real bet for me because I just think the market is so carried away on this. I know we all know UCF wants to run the ball. I think BYU has the trench play to stand them up and play with them at the line of scrimmage. So, like I said, way too cute for me here on the line movement. Give me BYU plus the 1.5.
I got 2.5 at 2 spots. So
2.5 sounds great. Sure. 4.5 points, worse than 3.5 points in the cuteness department. So sure.
I don't have that, but I will give you 2.5. Look, last week I was all over heading into the week like I can't wait to pick UCF next week because everything about cross country travel, It just feels like it's going to be one of those games where UCF's going to go on the road, have a bad game against Iowa State. We're all going to be high on BYU because they will have blown out Oklahoma State. And then BYU struggles. They have a poor performance at home against Oklahoma State, but pull off the win. And then Iowa State, same thing, poor performance against UCF, and then they pull off the win. I mean, it was mirror images. It was 38-35 for both of them. Both teams who won scored in the closing seconds of the game. It was a mirror image kind of game. And it just made me go, well, there goes that, because now the story, that narrative doesn't fit. Rewatching some of the RJ Harvey highlights from that game, and shout out from our friend Joe Broback, who put some of those out there for us. Like, that game was the first time Iowa State's linebacker depth issues finally raised their head, because what happened was, as soon as RJ Harvey got through that defensive line, the linebackers struggled. They looked slow compared to him, and they struggled to stop him. And so I don't know that it was so much a matter of UCF has figured things out as it was RJ Harvey was able to take advantage of the fact that Iowa State's on their like 4th, 5th, 6th walk-on linebackers. BYU's, yeah, they've got some injuries, but their running backs are getting healthy. Now look, Jake Retzlaff, much better at home than on the road, except for last week when he threw 3 interceptions. But Retzlaff has not been as good at on the road as he has been at home. Everything still makes me kind of question about this game, but I'm still on the BYU is the team of destiny. And look, I'll let Brian read his own numbers, but SP Plus has BYU by 3.2. T-Shoe has BYU by 12.5. Beta has BYU by just under 2. Parker's got BYU by almost 13. Kelly Ford gives UCF a 52% chance to win. He's the only one on UCF's side here. I feel like last week again, fool's gold. Fool's gold if you take what happened last week in the Big 12 and apply that moving forward. So, because BYU has moved all the way to a 2.5-point dog, even though it goes against the whole unranked home favorite versus ranked road dog that we like to talk about all the time, Chase, I just have a hard time here taking the UCF side. So I will ride with you, unless this is your Big 12 bet of the week, and take BYU plus 2.5.
It is not.
Brian.
It's not the Big 12 bet of the week. And I'll also mention, you get very different splits with that stat when it's the unranked team opens as the favorite versus the unranked team is bet into favorite status. So I'm actually not sure that this spot would even qualify for that trend.
Good to know. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Well, you mentioned my numbers also are on the BYU side of this. Projection to win by 4.4 in my numbers. I'm not sure about Team of Destiny stuff. I feel like instead I'm in the camp of these undefeateds are gonna meet their maker one of these weeks. So I even though my numbers like BYU, I'm a little skittish about that road trip. But I do like BYU's defense a lot. And I like the under as a result of that. I don't see a high scoring game. My numbers project 28-24, which is I think a few points under the line, so not a huge difference from that line. But I could see this being more of a slog than an explosive game, and in part because BYU is got a lot of things going for it in the defensive metrics I measure. They're in the top 5 in yards per play and first down rate and busted drive rate, which is keep holding opponents to 0 or negative yards per drive. And I just feel like that kind of stuff combined with I don't know, team of destiny or not, the will to eke out a win is going to be played out less in an explosive fashion in my mind than a down to the wire, more of a slog. So give me the under if I'm putting something on this.
Under 55.5 is yours, sir. I will remind everyone, BYU at night, 31-5 since 2019, 16-18 during the day. We'll see if that holds true. All right, next one on the docket for us, a loaded afternoon schedule. Also 2:30 p.m. God's time. ESPN Plus. Wow, how the mighty have fallen. Baylor hosting Oklahoma State in Waco. This is a big game for both teams, currently sitting at 3-4. Since 2021, teams that start 4-4 have made a bowl game 69% of the time. Teams that start 3-5 have made a bowl game just 18% of the time. So winner of this game is sitting pretty, especially Baylor considering their schedule. Loser of this game, I mean, fans you don't have to worry about making plans in December because it doesn't seem likely that you're going to be going anywhere. At the moment, Baylor, 6.5 to 7 point favorite, depending upon where you shop. Total in this one, 64.5 or 65, again, depending upon where you shop. I get to go first. Hooray. I said last week, fool's gold, right? Both teams. What happens when two teams both put on incredible performances that are very surprising and shocking, and then I have to figure out what they're going to do the next week? I don't know how much of Baylor to buy, but I do buy Sawyer Robertson and the performance he's been having as quarterback for Baylor. You had him last year and this year, and did you know he was going to be this good, Baylor? Because I don't think you did. I don't think you did. We didn't either, but I don't think you did. You should have, because he's your guy on your roster. Anyway, the defense still not great for Baylor. On the flip side, Oklahoma State's defense continues to be bad, and the defenders continue to drop like flies. Of course, they're down their top three defenders. They've got another defensive back who is done for the year with an ACL injury. Oklahoma State's just not healthy. Oh, by the way, they lost one of their quarterbacks to surgery, and then they start Garrett Rangel in the game against BYU, but he's got a broken collarbone, so he's done for the year. So now you're back to Alan Bowman, and his backup is a true freshman. Ollie Gordon he's banged up. They haven't said anything to specific. He's obviously not out for this game, but he's not healthy. He got banged up against West Virginia, obviously banged up against BYU. This is not a healthy Oklahoma State team. Now they got to go on the road to a Baylor offense that's figured some things out with Sawyer Robertson. These are the 7th and 11th teams in pace of play. A lot of movement should be in this game. In 4 Big 12 games, Baylor's quarterback Sawyer Robertson ranks number 1 with 13 passing touchdowns. We kept asking, when is Baylor going to quit on Dave Aranda? They didn't look like they've quit. I don't think they've quit. And at this point, I don't think they're gonna, because at 3-4 with the schedule they've got in front of them, a bowl game and saving their head coach's job is very much in play, which is a wild thing to say sitting here at the end of October. Everything favors Baylor. Everybody. SP Plus has Baylor by 2.6. Tishu has Baylor by 4.5. Beta has Baylor by 2.56. Parker has Baylor by 6.13. And Kelly Ford has Baylor with a 55% chance to win. Now, granted, they all have Baylor by less than 6.5. No one's got Baylor by a touchdown at all. But I'm back on my I don't trust Oklahoma State. Congrats Casey Dunn for finally calling a really good offensive game and making Ollie Gordon look like he did last year in a game against BYU. Casey Dunn will revert back to his normal self of being not that great of an offensive coordinator. The pace of play thing and the poor defensive play on both sides makes me say I'm either taking Baylor, or what I'm actually going to take is the over. Over 64.5, which sounds like a lot of points, and it makes me a little bit nervous. But I think we're going to see points scored in this game, and it won't shock me if some of those come from Baylor's defense when Alan Bowman throws a pick 6 or 2. Brian?
Or from Baylor's special teams, which currently ranks number 1 in my special teams rating numbers, which differ from some of the other folks out there producing them in that I give a lot of credit to the kind of results of special teams performances, not just success rate on special teams. So Baylor's got the top 5, I think, in 3 different categories, or top 10 certainly in 3 different categories in my special teams ratings. But that's also not a particularly trustworthy, repeatable thing. It's a thing that shows up and flares up at times, and sometimes you pile those results into certain games. So I'm talking myself both into, I could see Baylor kind of racking up a big number here, but I also kind of don't trust them. You just talked about not trusting Oklahoma State. I don't trust what Baylor has to kind of keep a momentum thing going unless special teams show up. So I'm gonna hedge a little bit and stick with my number that likes Oklahoma State. not to win outright in terms of what the FEI is projecting, but I'll take the points if I'm getting them, and in a game that I probably wouldn't touch with a 10-foot bowl because who knows.
Yeah. Yep. OSU +7. We got a +7 out there. Chase?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take you through my whole emotional spectrum on this game. And careful listeners to the show will know I have been a Baylor believer, especially in a point spread context. For most of this year, I've picked them a lot in this format. And when I saw this number, I even mentioned last week, like 6.5 at Texas Tech. Like, what is that number? That's weird. I kind of like them to win outright, and I almost made it Big 12 bet of the week. If only I had, I would be up to what, 2-7 for a Big 12 bet of the week. That sterling record. So I am a Baylor believer, and I come into this game and I see Baylor -6.5. Last week we're +6.5. We've flipped now 13 points to -6.5, and I'm thinking, well, that's ridiculous. I mean, I like Sawyer Robertson. I was in on Sawyer Robertson early. I like what Baylor is doing. I don't think the team is given. I like all these things, but 6.5 is ridiculous. So, give me Oklahoma State plus the points. I like that. And then I just go a tiny bit deeper, and I start looking at like, well, let me do my due diligence. Let's circle the wagons. Let me make sure I like this pick. And I get on, sometimes historically, I think I over-index on ticket splits, but I do think it's a thing to pay attention to. And I pop open the Action Network app. I see something like 94% of the tickets were on Oklahoma State's plus the points. And I'm like, oh, okay. So the public thinks that this is such a ridiculous point spread that Baylor can't possibly be the side. And I'm pinging some people internally at BetMGM on the side, like, hey, can you send me the ticket splits for a couple Big 12 games this week? Because I'm checking some stuff out. I get all the way back to the Baylor side of this, where I'm thinking there's a reason this number looks ridiculous. In a way, it's the same breakdown as last week. There's a reason that Baylor +6.5 as a winless Big 12 team looks ridiculous at undefeated Big 12 team Texas Tech. That seems ridiculous. And it was the right instinct to lean into the ridiculous and bet Baylor. And I'm going to do the same thing this week. It seems like this shouldn't be a team that you should lay 6.5 points with. But Phillip, I think you spoke a little bit to the health of Oklahoma State. Baylor, leaps and bounds. Is it crazy to say this is the biggest effective quarterback mismatch in the conference this week? Because I think it might be. So for several reasons. That's like a weird observation to make, but I think it is the case. So I think
it's every week that Alan Bowman starting for Oklahoma State is the biggest mismatch quarterback wise in the conference.
I don't know, but I'm as weird as it seems. I'm gonna lay the points with Baylor. At some spots this is ticked to 7. Even though there's just overwhelming ticket. I checked today before we got on here, and it's down from like 90+%. It's only 70% now. And yet the line is moving to -7 in some places. So I think if you dig deep enough, there are whispers, there are signals that Baylor is probably the right side of this, even at kind of a silly number like 6.5.
Very good. All right. It's a great loaded afternoon slate in the Big 12. We move to the night slate. Nighttime games starting at 6 p.m. God's time. FS1. A first ever meeting, which is a wild thing to say. First ever meeting between Arizona and West Virginia in Tucson. We are calling this one the Rich Rod Ruckus. Seems like an appropriate rivalry name for this one. Trophy is a piñata of Rich Rod's head. The winner gets to bust it open and enjoy the spoils inside. It's the best trophy I think we've ever, fake trophy for a fake rival we've ever made here on the 10-12 podcast. One of our favorite activities to do throughout the season at the moment. Arizona, a 3.5 point home favorite over the Mountaineers. Total in this one, currently sitting, as soon as I find it, at 52.5. Brian, you are up first, sir. What would you like here?
Another game where I like my numbers like the the dog to win outright by a hair. So I think I'm going to ride with that. I don't really, I don't love either one of these teams. I don't love what either one of them's doing. The uniqueness of the matchup, I don't think is although it's exciting in some ways, I'm not sure the travel or anything else is going to be much of a factor. I think I'm just going to trust the bottom line of my numbers and edge West Virginia to win outright. So give me those points.
West Virginia plus 3.5. Very good. Chase?
Yeah, I did a lot of soul searching on what West Virginia is these last few days, and I've watched a lot of video. I've gone back and like watched a lot of game footage and tried to figure it out. I had some Kansas State guys in my mentions after the game last weekend, kind of rightfully so. I take no issue with what was said or the Schadenfreude that was being deployed. I think the conclusion that I've come to on the West Virginia thing is they're obviously a frustrating team to try to watch and try to handicap. I think I figured it out over the weekend, and I won't repeat here what I said on Twitter, but the gist of it was down to down, play to play. I still think West Virginia is pretty good, but in high leverage, they're so bad. They make 5 plays a game that are so bad that it undoes the kind of like average to slightly above average nature that they get play to play, down to down, series to series. So I think you have to be a little careful, and maybe I'm just giving myself advice at this point. This is just like advice to one person. You have to be a little careful betting West Virginia if you are paying attention to the broad picture, because this is one of those cases where the specifics, the 10% that goes wrong can actually outweigh the 90% in a lot of cases. So that's my feeling. I came into this matchup, because I know we pick every game every week, and I'm thinking there's no way I'm taking West Virginia plus the points. It's not just that it would be West Virginia again. It's like the third straight week they're plus 3, and the opponents have gotten worse every week, and it's Iowa State, best team in the Big 12, maybe? Kansas State, contender? Arizona, team? We're just going down the list, and they're plus 3 every time. And I'm thinking, I can't do it again. I can't do it again. I worked the numbers for the total every possible way I can, trying to get to the over, trying to get to the number on the over, and I just can't do it. I can't get to a total play. It's going to be West Virginia plus 3.5 for me. And I don't think it matters who plays quarterback. I think if Garrett is watching this one, I think it's actually maybe a good thing at this point. I love the playmaking. Some of the turnovers the last few weeks I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what he's looking at. I don't know what he's doing. And it's really hurtful because the drives are good until then. And then the game spins out of control for, several games now at this point of the season. So I actually think if Nico plays, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think the fact that this game's not in Morgantown, that it's at Arizona, actually kind of a good thing. Like the crowd stuff, the Neil Brown stuff, it's gotten a little toxic online. Like I think getting out of town for a business trip maybe is a good thing for this team at this point. So I will begrudgingly take West Virginia plus 3.5 because I have to make a bet here, and it seems like the least bad option available to me.
Every number is on West Virginia. Brian mentioned his SP plus is West Virginia 0.4. Tishu is West Virginia 5. Beta is West Virginia 3.66. Parker is West Virginia 0.68. Kelly Ford is West Virginia with a 53% chance to win. So they're all on West Virginia very, 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 very slightly. I'm very tempted to take the over because every point projection is over the 52.5 that I can still get. 57, 55, 55.2, 57.49, and 56.77. So every projection is over. I'm very tempted. I have said Arizona is a bad team on this podcast multiple weeks in a row. Noah Fafita looks worse. He looks like he's regressed. They have no options besides him and T-Mac at all on offense. They can't run the ball. They don't look well coached, and it's not a good defense. I'm going to read you some stats real quick about West Virginia's passing defense. PFF coverage grade, 134th in the FBS. That's the worst, by the way. We'll start there. Beta rank effective passing defense, 122nd out of 134. CFB graphs drop back defense, 116th out of 134. Opponent yards per pass attempt, 131st out of 134. Opponent yards per completion, 128th out of 134. And opponent average passer rating, 130th out of 134. If there's ever a week where Noah Fafita and Tetairoa McMillan look like they did last season, it's this week against West Virginia's passing defense. West Virginia might be the defense that could still double team T-Mac, and it won't matter. I'm taking Arizona. This feels like a spot where at some point Arizona's got to have some things go right. Things are not going well for West Virginia. And this feels like the spot. I do think the cross country will have an effect. I just think it's the right side. I like the over. I do, but I've been so careful about totals lately because they've burned me so much this season that I'm very reticent to take them. So give me Arizona to win the first ever Rich Rod Ruckus and enjoy the spoils inside of the Rich Rod Pinata Trophy. One other way you can enjoy the spoils of your team this weekend is by going to charliehustle.com and picking up some merch for you to wear. Whether your team is winning and you want to celebrate, or your team is losing and you need an incredibly comfortable t-shirt, sweater, and hoodie to cry your eyes into that's got some of the coolest vintage-inspired collegiate designs, you need to go to charliehustle.com. They've got all 16 Big 12 teams. They have incredible stuff available. And if you find something on sale, great, throw it in the basket. They've got great sales going on all the time. And check out. If you find things that aren't on sale, use our promo code 101215, TEN1215, gets you 15% off all non-sale items. That is 101215, TEN1215. They do great stuff. They love the Big 12. They've got great stuff if you're a fan of any team in Kansas City. And look, the holidays are coming. Maybe you just want to get someone a gift card so they can pick out their own thing. Maybe you want to pick something out for a friend or a family member who loves a Big 12 team. charliehustle.com, promo code 101215. Save 15% off on all non-sale items. Charlie Hustle, vintage, made fresh. All right, ad segue had to be there because I needed a moment for us all to appreciate the Big 12 Sickos Game of the Week. This is the Big 12 Sickos Game of the Week, and I am so excited for it. I'm also excited because I'm very excited for one of the picks that I am most confident in this week. It is the University of Houston hosting Utah at 6 p.m. God's time on ESPN Plus. I will be at least checking in on this game on a regular basis. At the moment, Utah, a 3.5-point road favorite. Total in this one, 37s are still there. 36.5s are available if total is something you're going to take. Chase, you are up first, sir. What would you like? And Chase is frozen. Oh, there he is. You are muted now.
We got some ops problems over here, boys. I think the golden retriever might be chewing on the Wi-Fi extender. I think that is honestly might be what's happening outside of my door. So,
very possible. Very possible.
Phillip, I'm assuming you tossed it to me while I was gone.
Yes.
Well, boy, do I have good news for you.
Oh, I want to hear it.
This is your Big 12 bet of the week.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yes. Big 12 bet is the Sickos game. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Under 37.
No.
Change your pick now. Phillip, I need you to believe here. All right, we're getting this thing back on track. We're getting this thing to 2-7 this week. And under 37 is going to be the pick that does it. Phillip is beside himself right now on video. I pulled some interesting data here. In 2023, bets that closed with a total of 37.5 or less were 16, 8, and 1 to the under. That was last season. This season, same scenario, 37.5 or less closing total, 0 and 6 to the under. So total flip. Historically unusual. I think if you went data point by data point, you would find, I'm guessing, some early Army and Navy games that the market did not yet know that these are more dynamic offenses than usual. That's a guess. I don't know that for sure. I think we're going to get our first under here with a total that closes under 37.5. It's my bet of the week. If you're a longtime listener, you know I like the low total unders, especially in college football. So that's what we're looking at. Houston, until their last game at Kansas, was a perfect under team. They'd gone under the total every single game of the year. I think that's in play here. Utah's offense, not much to say about it. It's not looking good. Not to rewind and go back to the last pick, but I think one thing that scares me off of Arizona is if you replaced that Utah win and said they won at Houston instead of winning at Utah, how on earth would they be a favorite in any game going forward the rest of the season? It's like the results have been that bad. And Houston's offense and Utah's offense the last month or so have been kind of in the same league. You could even argue with the quarterback change that Houston's made that the Cougars maybe even show a little more dynamism. And that's the only thing that scares me off of this under is maybe the Houston offense rediscovers what they were doing against TCU. Probably not going to be as effective against Utah's defense. But that's kind of where my head is at for this game is I understand why the total is this low, and I am leaning into it. We're betting the low total under.
The first actual bet I made this week was I went straight to my Bet Saracen app and I put $1 on the under 37.5 in Utah and Houston. So you son of a, I guess I'm riding with you despite me literally saying I want you to pick your Big 12 bet of the week first so that I can do the opposite. Thanks so much. I'll list the totals from all of our friends. SP Plus has the total at 46, so that's an over. 37 at T-Shoe. Beta has 27.36. Parker has 44.35. Just a reminder for everybody, Utah's offensive coordinator stepped down this week. In his stead will be a new offensive coordinator, Mike Bajakian. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Here's the only stat you need to know. When he was the offensive coordinator at Northwestern, his last 3 seasons as OC, his offense ranked 120th, 123rd, and 124th in yards per play the season.
You could have stopped talking after offensive coordinator at Northwestern, Phillip. You didn't need to finish the sentence.
Now, I wanted to make sure everyone, I didn't say Iowa. And so, some people may not be as familiar. The point is, like, it's literally, I think I saw someone do the meme of they fired the OC and all the Utah fans were like, so you promoted somebody else, right? It's the Star Wars one with
episode 2.
Yeah. So you got us a better offensive coordinator, right? You got us a better offensive coordinator, right? So yeah, I'm riding with you under 37. I mean, look, a total this low, it's a sicko game, and between two teams who look as bad as these two teams, we might have this. It's not going to shock me if the final score of this one is like 9-6. So, Brian,
it would not shock me either, and my numbers do like the over. I've got to spit out 39 because I'm not sure any of our systems are kind of calibrated to spit out things much lower than that. So, I don't think a lot of points are going to get scored in here, and so I'm very tempted to ride and triple down on this. But
do it, Brian. Do it, Brian.
No, I'm reluctant to do that. This new guy's gonna really open up the playbook, and I'm not going there either. I will take Utah just because that actually is not that I have a lot of confidence in it, but it's a more confident number if I'm just using, in comparison to the line. So my numbers like Utah by 6. I just think Houston's pretty much trash, and though Utah isn't much better, is is a step better, is a tick better, a touchdown possibly better. So if a touchdown can't be scored in this game, it's going to go on Utah's side. So give me the Utes.
If a touchdown
laying
is
those
scored in
points.
this game, it's by the defense. And also, Chase, how dare you try to pile on a consensus curse on top of a Big 12 bet of the week curse as well, sir?
There will now be 90 points scored in this game.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's going to be the final total is going to be 35-34. That's going to be the outcome of this game.
Yeah, in triple overtime.
Oh, that's where it's going to get us. It's going to be like
Yes.
the under's going to hit, and then we're going to get 2 overtimes, and we're all just
It's going to be 10-10, and then somehow you're going to get you're going to get 18-18 or sorry 21-18 to lose the bet. Yeah.
Do you guys remember the Illinois Penn State game from a couple years ago that went to like 14 overtimes, and they each ran, I don't know, 12 2-point conversions apiece? That's the way I want this game to go over. Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be awesome to watch. Actually,
set the Big 12 record for number of overtimes played in a single game. That's what we need.
It's
Yeah,
6
is there
to
a prop
6.
bet on that? I'll take that.
6 to 6 after double overtime, and it gets all the way over 37 with the 2-point conversion.
Oh, that's beautiful. All right. Speaking of beautiful, one of the now longest running rivalries in college football. Lopsided or not, we still look forward to it. It is the Sunflower Showdown between Kansas State and Kansas. This one kicking off at 7 p.m. on ESPN2 in Manhattan. Woo, always fun. Kansas State currently a 10-point favorite. Total in this one is at 55.5. I am up first here. I just want to point out one thing here. Shout out to Kelly Robinette of the Wichita Eagle for pointing out that the Big 12 has somehow given Kansas the ultimate spoiler football schedule for the end of the season. I will read you Kansas' schedule for their final 4 games of the year. At 6-1 Kansas State, versus 7-0 Iowa State, at 7-0 BYU, and home for 5-2 Colorado. Well, I know it's not their final schedule, but they have those 4 games all on the schedule. So Colorado Kansas can absolutely play spoiler here, the end of the season, if last week's performance on offense is any indication they figured things out. However, as I've mentioned multiple times on this episode, I think last week was a whole bunch of fool's gold. A lot of teams came off of idle weeks. A lot of teams had just matchups that worked out pretty well. I mean, Houston's defense looked pretty bad. It's the worst Houston's defense has looked all season. Yeah, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that at all. Everything favors Kansas State. The smallest total is TSU, Kansas State by 10.5. So I'm riding with the Wildcats. Rivalry or not. Ooh, there's a 9.5. Oh, beautiful. Kansas State minus 9.5. Emaw. Brian.
I'm with you. K-State. My FEI has somewhat got a reputation in K-State circles as the most favorable to their style of play in the analytics systems. FEI will never quit the Wildcats. it feels like, and there's something to that. I mean, they are the way they've been built over the years, but maybe especially of late, they're kind of they're a possession maximization machine, not necessarily a dominating all stat categories, but maximizing possessions is kind of their thing. Now they had the really catastrophically lopsided loss earlier in the year against BYU, but otherwise are cooking, and I like them to continue cooking in this one. One of the things that actually struck out at me when I looked into their numbers this week is that one of the things that Kansas State and teams that maximize possessions often sometimes end up with is they're on the right side of like field position balances, and Kansas State isn't, which sort of like is another feather in their cap that they are 15th overall in my numbers, 14th on offense, despite having the worst starting field position in the nation coming in. So basically, they're doing something on a longer field on average than everyone else, and doing pretty well with it. So give me the Wildcats. rivalry be damned. They're gonna
16
roll.
and in a row. All right, Chase.
Yeah, I think historically the numbers say Kansas State against the spread in this matchup is the side you want to be on. I think I was thinking about it from a Kansas point spread this year perspective. A lot of the games they've been the Jayhawks been favorites, and then they get into the fourth quarter and they're trying to protect that lead in order to cover the spread, and they blow a bunch of leads. And so Kansas has been a really lousy favorite this year. But if you flip that and you make them a dog, it's comparable to the way I've talked about Colorado in a lot of ways this year. Is if you give them dog status and you know they're going to compete and then blow it in the fourth quarter, but they're catching 9 or 10 or 11 points, like that's a whole other handicapping situation to consider. And it makes them much more interesting as an underdog. I was really considering taking the points here. I mean, I agree with you, Phillip, on the whole, like, what does last week mean thing? Just throw that out. But I'm still thinking about Kansas plus the points as an interesting side. I think the safer way to attack this is by going toward the over. I think Kansas State is not going to struggle to score against this Kansas defense. I think Kansas will get its own offensive success going, particularly, I would say, early in the game. I think late is sort of where they fall apart, but I think they will do enough to cover this game. And so maybe you'll get like a 38-28 kind of game, and this goes over. So I'm looking at the over 55 here was the number I got before we recorded, but I don't know if that has updated in the interim.
I have all 55 and a half. Hold on. Let me refresh, because obviously we started this
55 and a half
an hour ago. So let's just make sure.
No, 55 and a half.
So over 55 and a half is yours, sir. Okay. Last Big 12 game on the slate. This is a good opportunity. You know, it's really weird. David Ubben of The Athletic wrote a really good article this week about Colorado and made a really good point of, as Colorado has become like a good, competent college football team, they've gotten a whole lot less coverage than when they sucked and were just boisterous and vibrato on a football field. Now they're actually playing good, competent football, and people don't talk about Dan anymore. Now, granted, he's not out there just saying whatever comes to mind just to irritate people on as quite as regularly, but it is interesting that as they've become less of a haha, screw them, people are paying less attention. Granted, they're paying more attention to teams like, Indiana, which is fine because that team's a ton of fun. Colorado hosting Cincinnati, 9:15. This is our Big 12 After Dark, 9:15 p.m. kickoff on ESPN in Boulder. At the moment, Colorado is a 5.5 point favorite. Total in this one is 57.5. I believe, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Brian, you are up first, sir. What would you like?
Right. All of these numbers are coming in pretty close to what the projections are. I've got Colorado winning by only a couple of points in FEI. I've got total right around 56, I think. So this is tough. I mean, I also like, begrudgingly, that Colorado's kind of becoming not just competent, but a team I like because of they're sort of playing well rather than playing flashy or playing playing for the headlines. They're they're just doing the right things right, and that's and not begrudgingly as in I was rooting against that, but so much as like, oh, like I also took my eyes off of them as well, and Ubben's column's a good reminder of, oh, all of us should pay a little more attention to what Deion's got going down there. So because I've got Colorado only by a couple of points, I'm tempted to go against my liking Colorado in a late night spot, and you know what, let's do that. I'm gonna go Big 12 After Dark kind of chaos. Let's take Cincinnati to cover. This one's going to go to overtime also, and in some exciting way again, and we're all going to be talking about Deion again because something crazy is going to happen.
All right, Cincinnati plus 5.5. Chase?
I think Colorado is the team I have had dialed in the best in the entire conference all year. I think I've I need to go back and listen to our episodes, but I think I've picked their games correctly every week for 6 or 7 straight weeks. I mean, I've really had them dialed in, and the general philosophy has been, if Colorado is a favorite, I am skeptical of them. If Colorado is a dog, I'm very interested. And that's going to carry through to this week as well. I think when you look at who Colorado has played, they beat Baylor after, a miraculous last play of regulation. Hail Mary goes their way before Baylor had really figured out what their success formula was, which I would credit sort of to the second half of that BYU game. I think since then they've been a different team. They beat UCF, and when UCF is like in the midst of this troublesome stretch of really bad football. They beat Arizona, who, other than playing a Utah team that turns out to be offensively horrible, Arizona hasn't done anything in Big 12 conference play. So that's not to take anything away from Colorado, but it's kind of looking back and understanding the moments that have led them to here. So knowing what I know about them, do I now want to lay 5.5 points with them against a Cincinnati team that's, I would say, pretty competent? I don't think they're necessarily like a great Big 12 team, but they're competent and they know what they're doing, and they also have pretty good quarterback play. These are two teams that are 5-2, and this point spread opens in the 3.5-4 range, and it's getting bet towards 6. So I think we are seeing Colorado on the back of some overvalued wins now moving toward a place where they're going to be priced out again as a more public favorite. For me, that swings the impetus back toward betting against Colorado instead of betting them as an underdog that's being overlooked. So I will also be on the Cincinnati plus the point side of this game. And we're going to move back toward going against Colorado, I think, as long as they are laying points in games like this.
You are 5-2 in picking Colorado games so far this season, and you have correctly guessed the last 3 in a row. So there you go.
Look at those stats on them.
So that's good. All right. Man, you said it, Chase. Cincinnati is a competent football team. I called Colorado a competent football team. I think that's the best way to describe both. These are just two good football teams. Now, they're not great. They both have good quarterback play. They both have defenses that are, I think, better than they get credit for. I don't think all the stats necessarily will back up how well their defense actually plays on the field, right? I think these are two just solid football teams who are both going to go bowling. We'll fall out of the Big 12 title game race here in the next couple of weeks, but are going to have respectable seasons in year 2 of their head coaches. And so I terrified to ride with you guys because so far we have avoided any consensus picks. Yep. And we all know the consensus curse here on the 1012 podcast pick show is the record is not good when everyone agrees. Everything favors Colorado. SP Plus is Colorado by 2.7. T-Shoe is Colorado by 4. As Brian mentioned, he's got Colorado though by less than 5.5. Parker's got Colorado by 4.33. Nobody has Colorado. Oh, Beta's got Colorado by 6.67. It's the only one that favors Colorado by to cover the number. And Kelly Ford gives Colorado a 65% chance to win this one. I have the same problem. I don't know which way to go here. It's better to bet Colorado when they're a dog than a favorite. I think Cincinnati covering is the right side. I think Colorado should win this, but it kind of feels like it's going to be one of those, kind of like the Baylor game where it's a close game and Colorado gets the ball last and finds a way to score and from down 4 to up 3 and celebrate going to a bowl game. All that said, I actually think I'm going to take the under in this one as well at 57.5. The totals are all right around the number, but lean towards the under here. I got a 57, I've got a 53, a 55.5, a 54.3. Beta, again, the outlier here at the 50, essentially 59. Again, I think they're two competent football teams. I think they're two competent teams who play decent enough defense for a lower scoring close game. So I'm going to take the under 57.5 in this one because I just don't feel confident on either side here. Okay. We wrap this show up the same way every week by picking one game from outside the Big 12. You can pick against the spread over under any game you want. Chase, you have first dibs this week, sir. Where would you like to go? Let's rebound on these non-Big 12 picks, sir. Chase is frozen again. So maybe Chase will go first. You know what, Brian, while we wait for Chase to get back, why don't you take a swing at this? What would you like, sir?
All right. If I get first pick, unless Chase is about to jump in.
No, Chase is back, but we'll let you go, Brian. Because Chase is frozen again.
One of the games I'm most looking forward to, I'm going to take, not because I am 100% confident that I've got the right number here, but I'm just excited to watch it. And I think, and I'm leaning strongly on one side just because of the pedigree here. But I like Boise State on the road, Friday night at UNLV, giving 3.5. My numbers have them by more like a touchdown. And I think Boise's got the kind of, frankly, the inside track for taking this all the way down the stretch and claiming the college football G5 playoff G5 bid that they feel destined for. Get that running back in New York for the Heisman ceremony, etc. And this is the big showcase game, and I just expect the Broncos to step up and win. And though it should be a great game, I think they can cover that number and take it. So that's my pick. That's my outside pick.
All right, I got you a 3. So
great.
That is
even better.
That is yours. All right, Chase, let's try this again, sir. What's your non-Big 12 pick?
I'm going to go to another game that has Heisman hopefuls in it, and that is Eastern Michigan at Akron. Pause for laughter. I was shocked to see Eastern Michigan is only a 3-point favorite in this game. Akron has won 4 FBS games since the beginning of the 2019 season. They are very bad, and I get that it's Maction and that upsets happen like water over there, but this is a bad number. And I wondered, like, you know how I feel about fishy lines and bait lines. It was to the point where I was like, I need to really drill down on why this number is what it is. And what I found is just the market systemically undervalues Eastern Michigan this year. They're not some awesome team. They're not going to win the MAC, but they're 6-1 against the spread because they should be a little heavier every week, and they're not. And it's a little bit of directional school bias. It's a little bit of, the guys that run the trading team at my company and everywhere else, like that. They're managing 134 FBS teams a week. There's not a huge amount of statistical analysis going on Eastern Michigan and MAC schools. So I think what this is just a little tiny bit of underrepresentation on the team itself in the market. And because it's a MAC team and it's a directional school, it just takes much, much deeper into the season for people to figure that out. I think this is a huge opening. I have a fairly large amount of money on this game this week in real life. So Eastern Michigan -3 is the bet.
I got you 2.5.
Even better.
Okay. I have a couple things I'm considering. Of course, as we mentioned last week, unders this year are 82 and 48 in games with totals of 60 or more points so far this season. There are 8 games this weekend that fit that bill. 2 of them are in the Big 12, as we've mentioned, OSU, Baylor, and Texas Tech and TCU. The other ones are Jacksonville State, Middle Tennessee, Pitt, Syracuse, UNLV, Boise State, North Texas, Tulane, App State, Georgia State, and Colorado State, New Mexico. So I was going through these and I was looking at them and I was going, okay. And then I stumbled upon the App State, Georgia State game and saw that App State is a 7.5-point favorite and went, I don't know that much about Georgia State. Maybe Georgia State's bad. But based off what we've seen from App State this year, how the hell are they more than a touchdown favorite in a game, even at home? Like they have not been good. That I don't understand. Their coach is heading to the unemployment line soon, it feels like. They're not used to losing at App State. Why are they a 7.5-point favorite in a game?
Are you asking Sunbelt Chase?
Yeah, Sunbelt Chase. Before I make this pick, why is App State a 7.5-point favorite in a game against Georgia State?
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I mean, App State favorite is the correct price, but I mean, 6, maybe 7.5 feels pretty rich. Georgia State, I've talked about this a lot. I can't remember if I've talked about it here. I think I did. I think it was last week when we were talking about the Marshall game. Georgia State lost its coach after spring football this year. So it is, even by like bad program standpoint, it is way behind in terms of like development and just knowing what it's doing. But the problem with App State, and there's no real like easy way to talk about this, but beyond being disappointing this year and beyond being, they were picked to win the East Division in the Sun Belt, and they're 0-3 in conference play. So beyond just like being worse than what people thought they were, Boone is in Western North Carolina and is just completely ravaged by like hurricane stuff right now. And all of Western Carolina is a mess. These are 21-year-old kids playing for a football team. There's no way it hasn't affected them, And that just has to be a part of what's going on with the team, is that it was already disappointing. And then you have a massive disaster event that affects the team, the community. I mean, the player apartments are flooded and it's just a mess. So from a pure point spread handicapping mathematical standpoint, like I would agree 7.5 is too rich here, but App State should be a favorite and it probably should be more than -3 or -4. It's probably less egregious than it looks at first blush, but I do think it's too rich.
Great. Georgia State plus 7.5. I get it with Georgia State.
It's the right side. It's the right side.
Georgia State plus 7.5. All right. As we've done the last couple weeks here now, I have asked my guests to help me make a real live weeknight bet. Now we're 0-2 so far. So not great. Last week was Purdue to cover the, 28.5 against Oregon. They did not at all. But we're going to give this a shot again because we've got some interesting weeknight games. So I will run through our options, and then you guys tell me which one you like best, and then we'll make a decision. On Thursday, we have Old Dominion as a 2-point favorite over Georgia Southern. Pitt as a 5.5 to 6-point favorite over Syracuse. Louisville, a 7.5-point road favorite at Boston College on Friday. Of course, the UNLV Boise State. We know the Boise State 3-point favorite, 3.5. I got to see what's actually available in mine. I'm sitting here looking at all these like, what's actually my book at? UNLV 3.5-point favorite over UNLV. Boise State is. And then USC, a 13.5-point home favorite over Ruckus in a just absolutely classic Big Ten. That is USC Ruckus as a conference game is all you need to know about what's wrong with college football right now.
It barely qualifies as weeknights. It kicks off at nearly midnight on Friday as well.
So, having read through all those, Brian, what if you were to pick a side? And I know how you made Boise State. I've got it 3.5 on my book. You picked Boise State as your non-Big 12. Is that the weeknight bet at this point that you like the most?
It's the one I like because I feel like I have the best sense of which team is going to show up in that game. Weeknights are squirrely though, man. Like as we're recording, I don't know if you had your eye on what just happened tonight. Liberty just went down to Kennesaw State. Undefeated Liberty just suffered their first loss to a team that just recorded its first FBS victory ever while we were recording. So sorry, spoiler alert for those who are listening live. So I don't know. Weeknights are wild. I do like Boise as the pick of the games up ahead of us. But if I do want to pick another one, I like Louisville at BC. One, not that enamored with BC. Two, but my number's like Louisville by 10 points in that game. So give me that one if we're looking for another one besides the Boise candidate.
We are all Kennesaw State fans as they have just eliminated Liberty from the college football playoff conversation. Chase, What do you like here this week?
It's a shame we're doing this Wednesday and not Tuesday, because 24 hours ago I would have told you how much I like Kennesaw plus 27.5.
Yes.
I had real money on it, so I've been watching, not even really that carefully, because it was clear very early 27.5 was going to cover. I never would have thought money line. I mean, as unimpressive as Liberty has been this year, I would not have thought you lose to Kennesaw, which is, I cannot overstate this enough. Like, not good. They're transitioning to FBS. They weren't even good in FCS.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on there. That's a wild result. But also the most maximally funny one, because if Kennesaw State might not win another game the rest of the year, which would be the funniest way for Liberty to be playoff irrelevant.
I literally tweeted like 48 hours ago that Kennesaw was on track to be the worst offense on record since, in all the numbers that I've kept since 2007, and they go around and knock off an undefeated. It's awesome.
Yes, this is now a sort of a side car we're getting into, but there has been a lot of success the last couple of years with JMU moving up, which full disclosure, like, I'm a JMU alum, as I'm sure some listeners know. Jacksonville State had a good 2023 run. I think Sam Houston looks pretty solid this year. I believe they've already reached bowl eligibility, and they're going to contend for the Conference USA championship. So, like, we've got a lot of evidence of, like, good teams, program building, getting the resources to move up, and then immediately having success in recent years, which I think is pretty different than what we saw in the 2010s. The case that the NCAA is always worried about is people moving up for the wrong reasons without the correct planning and resources and infrastructure in place, which is exactly what Kennesaw State has done. Kennesaw State's had a program for 5 or 6 years. I'm a former FCS reporter. I've been in the weeds on all this. Kennesaw State is basically, their whole attitude toward FBS is like, well, we are outside of Atlanta, so, I mean, we're definitely going to be successful. This is Georgia. We know how to do football here. It's pretty much the same thing that happened with Old Dominion like 10 or 12 years ago, where they were like, we're in the 757 in Virginia. You guys know how many good recruits come out of here? We are going to just cash checks over here. We're going to be so successful. So Kennesaw is, I mean, I don't know. This could be a big springboard result for them, but so far, it's pretty bad, as Brian alluded to. It's pretty bad, and I don't know what the roadmap is, and that's talking Kennesaw State football here on the 10-12 network.
Absolutely. Now, do you have a pick
for
I'm
supposed to answer a question.
We're supposed to be talking about actual
Anyway,
non-completed games.
Very interested in the Kennesaw situation, as you can tell. I'm actually head-to-head with Brian on the Louisville game, which is why I had a big reaction when he said that. I'm on Boston College plus 7.5. I bet it today. Louisville, I believe, has lost the last 4 outright in Chestnut Hill, despite being a favorite in most of them. 0-3 outright at Boston College. I'm reading out of my notes now. 2022, 13-point favorite at Boston College, lost outright. Series as a whole, the home team has won each of the last 6 meetings, 5-1 against the spread. Boston College is 6-4 against the spread against Louisville since Louisville joined the ACC 10 or 11 years ago, whenever that was. 60% of market-wide tickets biting the number with Louisville. This is a clear public landmine. That's the way I see it. And so I love that I got 7 plus the hook, and I am buying a money line ticket as well. I'm just waiting to see if I can get better than 220.
Well, I have Boston College plus 250. So what you're saying is I'm going to put $1 on Boston College with a $2.50 payout, and done.
I would maybe split it up. I would do like, well, if you're done, then you're done. But I think the way I usually do situations like that is, say you have $1 principal you want to bet. You've got 80, 85 cents on the spread, and then you put the rest on the money line, sort of as a garnish on top.
Oh, all right. Okay. So, sounds good. All right. Guys, this was awesome. Brian, again, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate getting to use your numbers each week here on the show. It's fun to go visit your site. For those who want to check out the work that you do, where can they do so?
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier. My website is bcftoys.com. You can follow me on Twitter, BC Fremeau, where I mostly publish and post and promote the updated rankings that I publish every week on that site. But I've got numbers dating all the way back to 2007 if you're curious of digging in on what's there, and happy to engage with people who want to know more about what goes into it anytime.
Brian, again, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. This will not be the last time. Chase A. Kiddy on Twitter for our good friend Chase. We will have the link for his best bets for Week 9 in the show notes. Don't forget to go check out 10-12 Overtime on YouTube. You can find us all over all the platforms. Well, no Facebook. I'm not dealing with that nonsense. I don't need to be on there. But, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, those are all fine. We'll be back on Monday to recap the weekend it was and look ahead to the weekend that will be. Y'all enjoy the football. We'll talk to you then.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.